out there because the guys that created a foundation of the internet is. And if you are not on the table, you don't have a seat on the table, then you says. So bring in whatever you want to bring in, your language, and make sure that you have the content, you have the capacity, which is that URL itself. We work with this, the name and numbers back to name, whichever way you look at it. And that is just what the DNS is all about. And what the DNS does, that's the fundamental thing, is to authenticate something that looks like wikipedia.org. Your username, you enter your password. The next thing is all the money in your account is to say what the DNS is all. And that is one thing that is managed by ICANN. Some people, we have the servers, that's a story for another day. We have the servers across the world that does the authentication. And the reason why we have the servers across the world is because of the round trip time. You are typing something, you don't want to be sending traffic to Europe, traffic to America all the time. You have servers across the world. So collectively, the domain name system and internet protocol addresses help us to navigate the internet. The Internet Commission of Assigned Name and Numbers help to coordinate and support these unique identifiers across the world. ICANN's mission is to help global internet. Has to be global. That is the role of ICANN. Okay, to ensure that number one, this is very important, it is stable. That when you type wikipedia.org, it takes you to Wikipedia's web page. It's not as if when you type it now, it takes you to one page. When you type it another time, it takes you to another page. It has to be stable. It has to be secured. Security issue is one of the greatest problems of the internet. One of the major problems is security issue. And a lot of people, this is one of the reasons why they still do not trust technology. When we're talking about online elections in our countries, a lot of people will say, no, we don't want e-voting. And the idea is because they will feel that it's a way that people can manipulate the vote. It's supposed to be much more secured. It's supposed to make things easier. But we don't trust it. From where I come from in Nigeria, we're supposed to have e-voting. No, it wasn't supposed to be e-voting. E-transmission of results during the last election. And the whole thing was a mess. On the day of the election, everything, the hackers were just sitting down to make sure that nothing runs. The entire thing was down. Nobody could upload any results because the guys, they want to use it. And even at that, we've had elections. I belong to the Nigerian Society of Engineers. Our annual election was hacked. Some guys decided that has access to the database. So those are the issues. The issue of security is very important. And if we cannot have a secured and global internet, then the issue of confidence is not going to be there. And that is one of the key roles of ICANN, to make sure that the DNS is secured and it's also unified. Because if it is not unified, then we're going to have internet fragmentation. There is nothing stopping any other person from creating what works like the internet. The only thing unique about the internet is everybody's using it. And the fact that it has computers sitting across the globe, if I can have enough money to deploy my own computers, run my own cables, do everything across the globe, then I can create an alternative internet. But the idea is we want to have just one. So the evolution of the top level domains. So like I mentioned earlier, ICANN deals with the top level domains. When the top level domain started, when things started earlier on, we were just 2 letters character for the top level domain. When we're talking about top level domain, you have a domain name, for example, wikipedia.org. Wikipedia.org, the .org itself is what we call the top level domain. That's the TLD. This Wikipedia is the second level domain. Okay? So the .org is what we call the top level domain, the TLDs. And we have them. When it first started, it was usually 3 characters or 3 characters. You have the .com, .org, okay? And that was how it started then. And they were just fixed. Not a lot of them. You could have .edu. You could have, those were the ones that we started with. And after some time, some people felt like this is too restrictive. It was easier in those days because, for example, if you want to create a form, you know that it's either this, or this. It cannot be anything else. And there were about 12, 15 of them. You just enter it manually. If anybody enters anything that is different from that, then it's not valid. Because it's the only person that can say something is valid is ICANN. And ICANN has said these are just the ones that we're using as our top level domain, our TLDs. Then, the evolution of the DNS for newer and longer TLDs. We now said, okay, no, we don't want just to have .com, .org, .edu. We want to have it longer. We want to have domain names that can have .london, .ghana, .accra, .africa. Okay? It can be any length. So we want it to be any length, not just if them. Please do. Is top level domain. People will come together. Some people will say, okay, I want to bid for it. Maybe a registrar. That's why we have registrar or registries. The registrar will say, I want to bid for it. Okay? And the registrar would say, this is the amount I want to pay. ICANN will agree. There will be an agreement that, okay, we are giving you .london. So .london will belong to a particular registrar that has paid ICANN for it. They will still be paying an annual due, but they have to pay an initial amount. It doesn't come cheap. Very expensive. I think the last round, the .Africa, they were paying about 185,000 US dollars. So it's not something that comes cheap. So when they assign that domain name, then the registrar that owns the domain name will now start selling the second level, whoever wants to buy it, University of Ghana .London, University of Ghana, University of Accra .London. They start selling whichever way they want to sell it. So for the TLDs, we now said we wanted to have the longer ones. So the longer ones during the last round, about 1,200 generic TLDs was actually given out. So we have things like .photography, .London, but you can see it's also still restrictive. It's about just about 1,200. Then people now felt that why must it be only in English character, in ASCII? In the alphabets, the normal ones, the English one, the ASCII keys, that they want to have it in something that looks like this. This is a Chinese, okay? Or something that looks like this in Arabic, that we want to have it in something like this too, not just to be in English. And now we now start talking about the new top level domain, internationalized domain names, that we want it to be internationalized, meaning in any language. It can also within domain name can also be internationalized, allowing for a domain name to be in local language and script completely. Internationalized domain are separate from online content, which can also be multilingual. IDNs, like I mentioned earlier, they are separate from the content. Now we're just talking about that domain name. We're not bothered about content. So what we are saying is it has to be something like this, whoever wants to have it. Now, what is unique about this is not in the ASCII normal ABCD that we know. This is in the Arabic script. This is in the Chinese script, which is like a drawing. When I see this, it's like a drawing. It doesn't look like an alphabet to me. But to a Chinese man, this is like an alphabet. Just like the way I see A. So, they want to also be able to do that in their own language, and that is where we now say we're now moving to the new top level domain. So the next round will continue to expand the DNS and give new opportunities. So now we're talking about, ICANN is talking about the next round of GTLD that is supposed to happen sometime soon. The process is already ongoing, starting that there's going to be a next round. In the next round, there's going to be the issue of the internationalized domain name is going to be resolved. That is when they are going to now start ditching out a lot of these internationalized domain names in the next round. A bit was done in the last round, but now we're talking about the complete internationalized domain names, and that is why this is very important. So it is important because of those other characters that would look like a drawing to me, but to the owner of the characters, for example, we have the one in Africa. If you go to Ethiopia, the way you see the way they write, when I see it, it looks like just a drawing, okay? And so it's just all over the world. Now, this was what we have before, okay? The 2022 demand, you can only have it .com, .edu, .aero, .info, .travel. This is what we have. And this one is now, you could have some once way, not completely anyway. And that is the next round of the GTLDs. These are various examples across the globe. So for the guy in Morocco, instead of them having just .mr for the country code, they also want to have something like this, .morocco, for .ma like this, .dz like this, Tunisia, because they speak Arabic, that is what they are comfortable with. You can see across the globe there are different languages, and that is the unique things about this. Okay, so they want to have something that looks like this. Now, to a lot of us, majorly we've been using English characters. Even when we speak our local language, it is still all about English characters. But when we're talking about domain names has two aspects. One aspect of domain name is for you to have a website. The other aspect is email addresses. If you have a domain name, okay, the only thing you have to do once you have a domain name, you can go and create email addresses. I'm sure we all know that. So once you have a domain name, University of Ghana, .ug, okay, then you create an address, abdulkarim.ug.edu.gh, okay. Everybody, depending on the administrator, that will say this is going to be our rules. This is how you have to create an email. But once you have a domain name, you can go and create email addresses. So email address is also important. And email addresses, okay, initially, email addresses were not only available in local language and scripts. Email address internationalization is also now trying to say that we want our email address to be able to internationalize. Meaning that if I have .edu and I want to write my first name in Arabic, I should be able to do it, okay, at whatever it is. And when you look at email, email is unique. There are two parts in an email. There's going to be the part before the at and the part after the at. The part after the at has to do with the top level domain. The part before the at has to do with you as an individual and the administrator. Whatever rules the administrator put in place that you have to use in been able to obtain. In a lot of times, they will say it has to be your first name, dot your last name, dot some with a middle name, or something like that. Everybody has their own. But the most important thing is there is a general rule. There is a part before the heart, which is determined by you and the administrator, and a part after the heart, which is dependent on your domain name, your second level domain name, and the top level domain name. Dot whatever it is, dot, that is it. And the rule is there can only be just 2 dots. It is dot edu dot whatever. You can also say there can be 3 dots. There's nothing saying there can be 4 dots or 5 dots. But there are rules. And those rules is very, very important for the system security. So that if somebody is trying to do something else, then it will not be possible. So now these are examples of IDNs, okay, in Armenia, in Georgia, in Korean. These are different characters, okay, in different languages. And people want to have email address using something like this in their own language. Because we said at the beginning that this is important. It is important because that is their identity. And people want to have it in this, and they should be able to do this. So, but the challenge is that sometimes, even when you have your email address in your local language, then is it going to work across the globe? If I have it in my local language, if my administrator allows me, based on the security of the system or whatever it is, it has been allowed. The challenge is, if I now want to fill in, I want to subscribe for a newsletter. For example, I want to be getting newsletter from AAU. And I go to the AAU website, and I input my email address, and it's saying my email address is not valid. Then there are 2 options. The first option is for me to go and create a normal email address. When I say normal, I'm talking about the conventional ones. Go and use Yahoo, go and use Google, or go and use Gmail or Microsoft to get an account and be getting my newsletter in that account. Or I just walk away and say, who is ready to do all this stress? Then I walk away. Now 2 people are losing. Number 1, AAU is losing because AAU cannot get me as their customer because I can't be bothered to go and start opening another email address just because I want to get a newsletter from AAU. And at the same time, I'm also losing because AAU is important. And whatever AAU information is sending out, I cannot have access to it. And that is the challenge. So it is not about the other person. Because for English character now, and he has his Arabic email address, then he cannot be your customer because your system would not allow that person to use their own email address. And that is why universal acceptance is not about anybody. It is about everybody, collectively. Because if you do not make your system UA ready, and the other person has made their own system ready, at the end of the day, there's still going to be a problem because there's not going to be an handshake between you and the other person. I hope you understand the importance. So it is not about we are not bothered, we do everything in English character, is this. Well, the thing is about others. And if others cannot get access to you as a businessman, okay, if others cannot buy, we're saying we're selling something on the internet, it should be global. The feel of somebody in Tunisia should still be the same feel of somebody in Ghana. And that is why this issue of universal acceptance concerns everybody. Everybody. As long as you are a system administrator, there are things you have to go and change in your system. There are things that you have to go and do. There are things that you just need to understand. And tell everybody, the most important thing is the fact that the computer is stupid. It is whatever you tell the computer to do that it does. So if you do not tell the computer, for example, we said in those olden days, there were just 12 TLDs, okay? Meaning, if I am a programmer and I'm programming maybe like a newsletter, I can just input the 12 or the 15. That if somebody comes up and put in .org.this, allow it, is a valid email. That's a way of doing what we call validation. Allow it to pass because you would assume that that email address is genuine. Okay, it's not being created by a bug or a machine or something. Do you understand? There are other ways of doing validation, but that's the easier way of doing validation. I don't want to be checking the DNS server. I mentioned earlier that you want to go and be checking all the time. Depending on where the DNS server is, if the DNS server is so far away from you, that means what you are doing is, for you to even check the content, first of all, you need to run the entire length of the cable, except you have a local cache. The way they do it too, you have a local cache. Now you don't have to be going to the DNS server all the time. Yes, but the easier way of doing it is, I know the format that this thing is going to take. Anybody that is giving me another format is not going to be accepted. And that is how this is how these things are being developed. And that is how the entire system is being developed. The softwares that we use. Whatever software you are using, it has its rules, it has its regulation, it has the way you define things. You have to define it. Whatever language you are programming, you are writing your program in, you have to follow the rules. You cannot just say, no, this is my own rule. It's not going to work. You have to follow the rules. And you have to specify. You have to tell the system what to do. I'm sure we all know that. So these are the challenges, okay, of acceptance of websites. If you look at it, the ones here, ASCII. ASCII is majorly, no problem at all with ASCII. The short one, okay, the .com.edu, those ones, 100%. No problem at all. Okay? But when the longer ones came, some systems are still giving problem. They still don't understand because the person managing it has not gone back to change it and say, allow these kind of things to happen. We still have that. It's still just about 90-something%. There's still about 10% of the system across the globe that does not even know that ICANN has changed the rules to allow you to have the longer ones. Then, the IDNs. This is now much more problems. Okay? Then, when you are now talking about the ASCII, the Unicode at ASCII, that means you are saying you should be able to combine the Unicode and also the ASCII keys. Then, you are now talking about the languages. Now, it's getting smaller across the globe. This is as a result of tests that was carried out on a number of websites, pages, to see if they are UA ready. And you can see that majorly, this is where there is no problem. There is still problem across every other thing. And that is why you are very important. Now, this is also telling us about, this is the percentage. You can see, this is as at 2021. You have about 19.52 of the systems that were tested that is actually UA ready. But you can see that we're making progress. This green line, you can see that we're making progress. This green line tells us, okay, So this green line, what it does is telling us this is the progress we are making. This is the number of people who have actually AI full support. Number of people that have, you can see this is the total number of people on the internet and this is the percentage. So you can see now as at 2024 June, it's just about 23 or 24% of the systems that is actually still UA ready. If you look at this graph, okay, forget about this one. This is just the number. It's this one that you need to look at. This is the percentage. And you might say that why is this one higher than this? It's because things are getting better. There were times that there were a lot of these email servers. Okay? But now, majorly, I think it's Microsoft, Google. They are the largest guys now that people use across the globe, I can say that 80-90% is owned by these two guys. In between them, Microsoft and Google. And a lot of people ditched the old ones when they have to do all these other things. I think then Yahoo too. But Yahoo, yes, those are the three big players. Then we now want you to check. Okay? Check your own email address. We want everybody to log into this website. Okay? To check. So what we are doing in the universal acceptance testing, let me tell you a little bit about universal acceptance testing. So when these things came up, everybody now felt there has to be, because it's not something that just one person can actually solve. It is a problem that people have to solve across the globe. And like I said, when it comes to domain name, ICANN is the foundation of domain names. So within ICANN, some people now put themselves together and said we want to have what we call the Universal Acceptance Steering Group, which is now the group that a lot of us now belong to, and say we're going to be going across the globe. We're going to be having UA Day across the globe. Okay? And the essence, so this Universal Acceptance Steering Group has a lot of materials when it comes to support, when it comes to awareness, when it comes to how do you do things. So if you go to the Universal Acceptance Steering Group website, you're going to see a lot of materials, okay, that will give you good understanding. And one of the things you can do there is to check that is your email address UA ready. For a lot of us, there is no problem because we use Yahoo, we use Google, we use Microsoft. All those ones, the big players, they're already keyed into it. It is not a problem. It is for those of us that we manage our email. For example, some universities might decide that because of privacy issues, because of this, we're not going to use Gmail. Because in as much as it is, we're talking about security, we're talking about privacy. If you are using a Gmail account, whatever you store, a Gmail has a copy. The administrator in Gmail can actually see the back end. Yes, it might not be able to read your emails. We're not talking about encryption and things like that, but there is technically he can, or she can, because they have it on their server. And even when we're talking about encryption, yes, it is much more complicated now with encryption, but there is nothing stopping, and that is why even in courts they have to compel those service provider. Like for example, if there is a fraud case and they said using, the guys have used WhatsApp, okay, the only person that can actually compel WhatsApp to bring the chat is the court, and it's going to go through an extremely difficult situation. For example, maybe the guy has passworded his WhatsApp and nobody knows the password. They've tried, and the police are convinced that they will have information from the chat. Okay? Ordinarily, they are just supposed to invite WhatsApp and say, go and provide us this. But it's not as straightforward as that. Okay? But the courts can actually compel WhatsApp and say, this is a security issue, that 1 million people is going to die if we don't do this. We want to have access. And in some cases, WhatsApp will not have a choice. They have to tender it and say, this is it because of this court case. But it is now getting extremely difficult that even WhatsApp itself, they will tell you that it's not everything we have because of encryption. We need those keys to be transmitted. And because of that password that the guy has put on this thing, we ourselves, we cannot even generate the keys. All we can just see is something blank, but we can't see the entire thing. It's getting there, but I can still say, yes, we are not yet there entirely. And that is why a lot of people would say we are not using Yahoo, we are not using Google. We want to have our own email server hosted locally, so that if there is a problem, The only person that can have access is our administrator or whatever problem is. Is there anybody that manages a private email server here? That is not Yahoo, is not Google, is not Microsoft. We still have them. Extreme cases, a lot of companies will not use, but for us in Africa, we use them. So, have you checked? What's the result that you get? Huh? Who has not supported? What did you get? Sorry, you were raising your hand. AI supported. Most likely you are using maybe Yahoo or Google or whichever one. All those ones don't have problem. I can assure you, all those ones, no problem. It is the guys that are not using the conventional ones that you need to now go and do some of these things. So, digital inclusion or opportunity, we're talking about the percentage. At the moment, we're talking about 5 billion internet users that are not yet using the internet. The remaining 1/3 of the world population, they are still not online. And many of these are not online because they are coming from indigenous community, from their native language, and they don't even speak English. So what are they doing online when the internet cannot speak their native language? And as you can see, sorry, this graph is actually a bit important, that across the world, these are the number of people. If you look at it, percentage of individuals using the internet, look at it where we are in Africa. We're still less than 50% of people using the internet. And across the globe, there is no way you can get that 100%. And that is why it is important. The internet is not supposed to be something that is luxury. Okay, it's not supposed to be something that is luxury. It's supposed to be like road, water, home to live. That is the way the internet access is supposed to be. Something that everybody, and that is what is supposed to be part of development, would actually have. There was a survey about if somebody has, this is my last 10 CDs I have in this world, what are they going to spend it on? And you were surprised that a lot of people said, I'll go and buy recharge card and put on my phone with that last 10 CDs I have. And the reason for doing that is because they feel that, okay, I have 10 CDs, that's the last one I have. But if I have credit on my phone, I can call an uncle and say, Uncle, 10 CDs, that is all I have. I don't have anything more. Can you help me? And that is how important it is. Something that you have you would expect that somebody will say, this is the last I have. And it's going to be food that I'm going to spend it on. But as important as telecommunication is, it is far beyond that. People would actually prioritize it because it can give them opportunity to have more. Or I'm going to use it to sell my commodity. Or somebody that does not have a shop. I'm sure we have that. So many people now, everybody is now selling something. And you ask them, where's your shop? They will say, Instagram. And you wonder that, so everybody is now in Instagram. Some people even say WhatsApp. And I wonder how they sell on the WhatsApp. But a lot of people are selling. A lot of people are making money. And it's just that they post the picture of what they are selling. And somebody will say, I want to buy. And a lot of times, what I even see is, the person does not even have the product. When you tell the person, I want to buy, that is when the person will now go to the market to go and buy it and sell it to you at a higher price. And that is the beauty of the internet. You don't need to have a physical shop. And that is the advantage. And multilingualism. Okay, due to the need for multilingual internet, it was all these ones beyond 2005 and things, it's all still a challenge. Okay, and that is one of the major things. And that is why everybody is still not yet connected to the internet, because we're still facing the challenge of multilingualism. And that is one of the problems that universal acceptance is trying to solve. So universal acceptance is all about we now telling the software manufacturers, the registrars, the registries, we're telling them that people want to have access to the internet, they want to have domain names in their own local language, and that is exactly what universal acceptance is all about. I'm sure you have been hearing about universal acceptance since in the morning, and in a nutshell, that is everything about universal acceptance. You have to have that ability to use your own language on the internet, especially on the domain names. So the goal of universal acceptance is that all valid domain names and email addresses should work in all software as long as it is valid. Not the fact that we have 70%, 80%. There are some softwares, they will not allow it. Then the impact is to promote consumer choice, improve competition, and provide broader access to the end users. This is important because if you are selling a product, okay, and it's only limited to your community, then what you are going to make is also going to be limited. But by the time you open your product to the global community, everybody can speak to you with their own domain names, okay, then you are likely going to make more money. So as a company, it is important. As an organization, it is important. As a businessman or woman, it's also very important because you want to promote consumer choice, improve competition. And the truth is a lot of people are making money on the internet these days. Maybe I should move closer. We go back. Okay. So these are examples of domain names. These are the ASCII, the normal ones, example.sky, example.engineering. These are the newer ones, the ones we call the Unicode. These are the internationalized domain name. You can see you have the normal ASCII, okay, at the ones that is the Unicode, okay. You have this at example.com. These are what we are calling internationalized domain names. This is possible now. This is where the challenge is when you are mixing everything up. When you are mixing everything up. So ASCII is based on letters A to Z, and these 0 to 9 hyphen. Unicode supports characters of global language and script. So ASCII is the whole thing. Now we're saying, let us stop using ASCII. Let us move to Unicode. Achieving UA ensures that everybody has the ability to navigate and communicate on the internet using their chosen domain names and email addresses. UA can help support better, diverse, and multilingual internet, enable greater competition, innovation, and consumer choice, create business opportunities, offer career advantages for developers and system administrators, assist government and policymakers in reaching the citizen. This is very important. If government wants to reach the citizen and they are using English language, then who are the citizens they are using? At least in our community, are they reaching the grassroots? Okay, and that is the problem, and that is why UA is important. So for us as the technical guys, when we're talking about UA, let us now go and look at our systems. We need to go and look at our systems. When they were saying we're going to do technical hands-on training, it's not really so much of an hands-on because there are so many languages that you write your program in, but the principle is the same thing. Whatever language you are using, the principle is basic. It's either everything is based on maybe Java or similar or C++ or Python, but even if you are using whatever you are doing in Java, you can do it in Python. It's still the same principle, it's just that the syntax is different. So for a system to say I am UA ready, you need to ensure that that system must accept. Okay, that means when that person wants to open you have a newsletter, or you want to do a sign up form, then I am putting my email address, then that thing must not tell me that my email address is not valid, or it must be able to accept it. And that is the only way. If it is not accept, then the system is not UA ready. If I enter my name, if I want to enter anything and it says enter your name, and I decided to write my name in Chinese language now, and it's saying then there is a problem. That it doesn't accept it. It's saying invalid name. You know, there are times that you write something that maybe you put a dot, maybe you are filling a form and you put in a dot or something, the system will tell you immediately name invalid, because there is no way a name can have that. We all have the convention. So the system has been designed in such a way to avoid errors. Okay, for example, I was trying to buy an air ticket a while ago, and the funny thing about the way they designed the airline, they designed their thing was, the thing was not bringing error message, but the thing was I was clicking on next, but it was not going. And eventually, when I spent about 30 minutes trying to figure it out, I tried it on my phone, I tried it on the system. I was still having the same problem. I now tried another system. The thing now worked. I now discovered that because the date of birth I have entered, it was like 2014. And they know that a child of, it was like 2024. A child of 2024 cannot be buying tickets. The thing was not progressing. And usually when it was local ticket, I just put any age. And that was what the problem was. And by the time I just changed the date to like I'm 12, 15 years old, the system allowed me to move on. And that is the thing about when a system is. So we need to design the system in such a way that it would accept all these other things that we've talked about. That has to be any character. Because if your system is not designed to accept it, then it's not going to be UA ready. The next thing is validation. There are so many ways in validating. So many ways of validating, depending on if you're bothered about security, if you are bothered about something looking fine, or if you are bothered about time. There are so many ways we do our validation. That once somebody enters an email address, you will validate that this email address is correct, or if it is not correct. So you need to design the system in such a way that when it is carrying out its validation, the software accepts the characters and recognizes them as valid. It must recognize them. Then when it's processing, because sometimes you have to process these things, it must be able to process. So think of it. Are you processing, maybe you're a customer, you're a shop, you get people's email address, but you need to process through those email address so that you'll be getting monthly newsletter to come and buy things from your shop, or they are getting things about your loyalty, or you have your airline, you are sending to them that their air ticket and their flight has been delayed or something like that. You have to, if not, the whole thing is just going to be bouncing back. Then storage is also important. Your system must be able to store that anybody has written it in their own character, and it will also be able to display, because there are times that you have to display these email addresses, or you have to display the name, or you have to look at it. Okay, these 5 things. Okay, once a system can do it, then we say the system is UA ready. So a call to action, the ITU. Using the ITU, I know some of us will probably represent our country at the ITU. They are focusing on the role of the administrators and member states on the management of internationalized multilingual name. This was at the last ITU Plenipotentiary Conference in Bucharest, where I was part of those that contributed to this, actually, because I represent Nigeria at the ITU. So we said IDN contributes sustainable development through promotion of greater internet accessibility, the need to continue to implement technical solutions, and recognize the role played by government, technical communities, and stakeholders in advancing multilingualism, including the introduction of internationalized domain name, the importance of community engagement, and information sharing to get better. This is a lot. I would say that these are just words, but it means a lot. And why it means a lot is the fact that even at times, I can tell you that it took us days to agree to this text when the negotiation was going on. And the challenge is not because some of us that were opposed to some of this language were opposed to it, not because we don't believe in it, but because we believe that the internet is still in favor of some group of people. And that is the problem. That, for example, I am Nigerian government. Twitter has done something that is threatening security in Nigeria. Can the Nigerian government say, Michael Zuckerberg, or CEO of Twitter, tomorrow, appear before our parliament? The guy will just look at them and walk away. Who is Nigerian government? But if American government, the parliament, tell him, appear tomorrow, who is his father that will not appear? Do you understand? But the internet is supposed to be global. And the same Twitter, the same person using Twitter in Nigeria is also supposed to be the same person that is using Twitter in America. Or at least just the citizen that is different. But because of the fact that it is still not a global village the way it's supposed to be. If Nigerian government has problem with Twitter, even let them write 1 million times, the guy will just ignore. Worst case scenario, will send maybe Nigerian representative. If it's even so important, he will say, okay, maybe African representative, go. At best, he will say just ignore, forget them. And the best thing Nigeria government will do is, okay, we're going to ban Twitter. And that is why some countries are banning Twitter. If you go to Uganda, if you go to some countries, it was banned. Twitter was banned in Nigeria for some time until they came to negotiate. And even when they came to negotiate, they brought the middle class guy. And that was how after Nigeria government did so many noise about it. The top guys never still came to Nigeria to negotiate. Never. And they lifted the ban. But the thing about the ban again is there is nothing like total ban. You cannot, there is no way you can do it because the internet is not one source. What you can do is to tell your service providers, don't allow this one to go. And the worst case scenario people will do is they will use VPN, fake the IP address, and the thing will still be able to go. So technically there is no killer switch, and that's one thing I like about the internet, that even the most powerful man, Trump, when Trump was the American president, the internet gave him problem. And that's the most powerful man at that time in the world. If there was a switch that the guy could say, switch off at that time, when Twitter was giving him problem, the best thing he did was he went to create his own. But Twitter still shut him down. So, and that is the power of these companies. And that is why a lot of us focus on the power of those companies and feel that because it is not so much of a global community, and that is where the problem is. So as long as we're trying to solve these other problems, we also need to try and solve the political issues. Because if we don't solve all those other issues and say the man in Ghana and the man in America must have equal rights, there are still going to be problems. So at the ITU, these are also invite member states to further promote adoption of universal acceptance in respect of IDNs and to collaborate and coordinate with relevant organizations, stakeholders in enabling the use of the IDNs. Let me tell you, this word organization took maybe days to be agreed upon. Just this word again, just this one word, organizations. Because there are some people that feel that, I don't know if I should say this, that what ICANN is doing should not be done by ICANN. It should be done by not a body that has affiliation with America. that it must be a truly independent body. And that's why they don't want, a lot of people say, I don't want this word organization here, or I don't want this word stakeholder. Because for most African governments, left to themselves, it must be done by the government. If government say shut down internet, everything should be total. So these are the things we're working towards UA readiness. And one thing ICANN is doing, ICANN is a global community, trying to work towards the global community to ensure that our scripts are universal acceptance ready. They promote it through the USG group, organize outreach like this ones, conduct detailed studies, determine solutions to address this problem. Then when you find bug, you submit it. That's conduct technical training, development of curriculum, which Africa, one good thing about it is, those of us in Africa are taking a lead now compared to in those days. Yes, we came late to the table. A lot of the rules has been determined. But yes, we're also moving on. Some of us were in Morocco, courtesy of AAU, about 2 weeks ago, and we've started developing curriculum for universal acceptance. And that is something that is the first of its kind. No other region across the globe has that curriculum. The first one is actually coming out of Africa, which is something really good. So who can help achieve UA? Technology enablers. Okay, organization producing relevant standards. They need to tell them that when you are doing your software programming languages, you need to ensure that it's not just ASCII that is being accepted. When you are using your database, you are using the latest one. Technology developers, individuals developing and developing online services using programming languages, email software and services, email providers, okay, email service providers, administrators, policymakers, academia. It's also important. And why the academia is also important is because a lot of times when we teach, for those of us that teach software, we don't even teach Unicode. We just do ASCII. And the guy does not even know when he's designing the system that he needs to use Unicode. He will just be putting, fetching from the ASCII database. And once somebody else is using something else, then it creates a problem. And that is why everybody is important. Government is important because they are policymakers. Then businesses. Many businesses are leaving money to the table by not upgrading their system. So a lot of businesses, you need to check, okay, your organization, that is our system UA ready. And I explained that earlier. So the businesses, they have a role. You need to create awareness between your own organizations and other organizations. Then the government also has a role to play. Civil society also have a role to play. You need to encourage people, make their own system to be UA ready. And also the academia has a lot of role to play. You need to teach them. The technical community, okay, carry out training. You need to test and address it. Then there is going to be bugs, okay, and the bug is because of security concerns. Because one thing I have seen is that there is always going to be the bad guys. And there is so much money in even being the bad guy. And the bad guy would always want to be one step ahead. And when you are opening this thing up, if the door, the key to the door, is such that it cannot be easily faked, it's going to be difficult. But by the time we're opening these things up, before, when it was 12 characters or 3 characters, you know what those top level domain can be. But now, you are opening it, you are giving it up, you are opening it up. That means if there is a computer generating something somewhere, it can easily pass through. Unlike before, you will not be able to pass through. Those are security challenges. There's going to be them, but because of those security challenge, we should not think we should not move forward. So the technical community also has a role to play. Then the DNS industry has a very serious role to play too. When you are assigning customers, when they are upgrading their system, their businesses has to encourage others to upgrade. Make sure that the registrant has service available, because sometimes you might even want to upgrade your own system. But because your registrar has not upgraded their own system, then there's nothing you can do because it's a shared network. You are not so independent of them. The older the registrant, you need to check that your service provider that is hosting your website and email to make sure that they are UA ready. Because if you are hosting with somebody that is not UA ready, there is no way you yourself can be UA ready, as we're going to see as we move on later. You need to check that your website and email admin to check that they are ready. Create UA awareness with your ISP, web developers, email admin. Ask them to update their system and make sure that they are UA ready. So, in terms of ongoing work at ICANN, we have the UA updating their own system and software. We have the CCTLDs. The CCTLDs, I'm sure some of us will know what CCTLD is. We have majorly two types. We have the generic, which is .com, .org, .travel, .amsterdam, .africa. Then you have the country domain names, which are the CCTLDs. .gh is owned by Ghana. Okay, .ng, .nigeria, .usa, .uk. Those are owned by those countries. But there are different ways of managing it. For example, .gh. I think GDNR manages .gh. Am I right? I think GDNR, they manage .gh. Yeah. So, it's managed differently across the world. In some countries, it's the government itself that manages it. In some countries, it is like they form a company, which is what ICANN actually wants, that government should take their hands off it completely. Okay? So, for example, in Ghana, GDNR. But again, there are challenges. I don't want to go into the challenges because there are challenges. Then you have the GTLDs. Then the LGRs, which is the label generation. The label generation rules, these are the guys that are also important because they set the rules to say that capital A is different from small a, capital B. And we'll see when we're doing the further trainings, we'll see that there are things that is unique to a particular language. And these LGRs, these are the people that said this is the standard of this script. And once they define it, it is what this computer, the systems, the programmers would have to adopt, or even ICANN itself would have to adopt. So those are the ongoing work. So the LGRs, they are working in order to do. Then, very important, we're moving towards the next GTLD round. It is important for us as Africa to ensure that we contribute to this. And I'll tell you why this is important. Domain names, I can say some of it has turned around the world. You can imagine if you own .org or you own .com. For example, if I own .com, when they were auctioning out .com, I was the lucky one to buy it. By today, I will not even be working again. What is work? Work for what? I'll just be sleeping. I'll be waking up. And I'll just be checking my bank account and I'll go back to sleep. Everybody that owns .com, I think it's about $20 now. And you know that is millions of IP addresses across the globe. Even if it is making $2 in millions, and millions are paying every day. Everybody pays for a domain name. And I'm just making $1. Even I'm making 50 cents. There is so much money in it. Internet Society owns .com and .org. And so much money in it. And the thing is, for example, even those managing .gh, they are not broke people because people are buying domain names from them. Okay? There is so much money in it. So much than what anybody can imagine. Okay? So, if when they were selling the domain name, for example, but the challenge is that it's not all domain names that have been successful. When they were doing the last auction round, some people went to buy .africa. .africa has not been really successful the way it was supposed to be. The first thing that happened to .africa was litigation. First 4 years, they were in litigation. By the time they came out of litigation, the market they were thinking they were going to get, the market has gone. Things has evolved. Okay, but there were some guys that went to buy .help, thinking that, okay, all the organization that wants to do help will come and buy from them. They're big successful. There are some guys that went to buy .bank. Some people went to buy .travel. It is a mix. It is not exactly totally saying the money is going to be there, but they are selling these things very expensive. But for us in developing countries, ICANN has a applicant support system that you are not going to pay the entire full amount of money because you are from the regions, the emerging markets. For the last round, it was about maybe 186,000 US dollars. That's a lot of money. Who's going to put that amount of money down on a 50-50 business? But the good thing is there is support from emerging markets, underserved regions that you can seek from ICANN, so that you're not paying the entire full amount, you're just going to pay a little amount. And the most important thing is do your market survey. Understand that, for example, there is a guy that owns .it. The way he's selling the .it across the globe now is that if you're an IT expert, and .it originally, I think it belongs to Italy or something, the country domain name. What they now did was to give it to this guy and say, go and be selling it to anybody across the world. So I want to have an IP, my own website now. It's now abdulkarimoloyede .it. Then everybody knows I'm an IT expert. Then people want to now start creating their own website, .it. That is why how they are selling it. .uk became so popular because then Yahoo was just giving people at yahoo.co.uk. So if you do your market survey well and feel that there's going to be a niche, if you can go and buy .students and convince students that, okay, go and open a website for your business or something, there is so much in this thing. The only thing is you have to ensure that you do your survey properly and ensure that you are going to make a return on your money. Also for ICANN, there are so many opportunities. ICANN Fellowship, I'm sure Raymond will tell you about ICANN Fellowship, Next Gen program. If ICANN has 3 meetings every year, of these 3 meetings every year, it goes from one region to the other. For this year, the first meeting was in Puerto Rico. The second one is going to happen in Rwanda. The third one, later in the year, is also going to happen in Istanbul, 3 different regions. Anybody can apply for ICANN Fellowship as long as you just meet the requirements. That means you are doing something within the ecosystem and you can explain it. You can apply for ICANN Fellowship. ICANN will pay for your travel, they will pay for your hotel, they will pay you stipend for you to go to these ICANN meetings. So check ICANN website, apply for the fellowship. And we also have what we call the Next Gen. The Next Gen is for people who are studying, undergraduates, but it is not really undergraduates, anybody studying, even though you are doing a PhD or a master's, and as long as you are below the age of 30. What you can do, apply for Next Gen, but the Next Gen is restricted. For example, the meeting that is happening in Rwanda is only people from Africa that can apply as Next Gen. So you cannot go from one continent to the other as a Next Gener. No, it has to be people from that continent. So the first meeting that was held in Puerto Rico, the Next Geners are only students that are studying in North America and that side. The one that is going to happen in Istanbul, the Next Geners. So now it's too late for you to apply for Next Gen for Rwanda, and we don't know when next is coming to Africa. But when next it comes to Africa, we can apply for Next Gen. But for fellowship, that can be done by anybody for whatever region. All you have to do is to fill in the form. It's going to be evaluated. But one thing I have to say, I evaluated the fellowship for probably about 2 years, and I can tell you that majority of applications comes from Africa. And yes, I can say that most people that get the fellowship are from Africa, but the quality of the application from especially Africa is extremely poor. That when you look at some of these applications, you just feel like, this is just a disgrace, because the person has not even spent time to fill it. Maybe it was just 5 minutes. Let me just write anything. And that is just the end. And the person just writes anything and submits the application. And you look at it, there's a clause that says, is this from underserved community? It doesn't say well. So if you are applying, make sure you spend time. Make sure you have contributed to the ICANN community. Okay, majority of the work in ICANN is done online. The only time that you meet physically to do all these other things is just 3 times a year. 5 days there, 7 days there, 5 days there, a total of less than a month that you meet physically. So contribute to the community. ICANN community itself, it is important because they want everybody to contribute. The internet is owned by everybody. But at the same time, it has to be quality contribution. Content quality is not just to come and fill the table, but fill the table with quality. So I think we're getting almost to the last slide. So I think, so you need to get engaged. You have the fellowship program, you have the next gen program like it was mentioned. And the other thing is just to look at the principles of universal acceptance, which we have mentioned earlier. So I'm just going to spend about 2-3 minutes to look at this principle. We're talking about accept. Okay, the first thing is that the process, I'm just going to start with the first one. The process by which the email address or domain name is received is a string of character and a user interface file. So you need to make sure that you use interface element that must support Unicode, and it must also support string up to 256 characters. Okay? It needs to validate, it needs to store, it needs to process, and it needs to display it. These are the things we're going to look at in much more closer look. We'll have a closer look at them in the next presentation. So now I'm going to just stop here for this general introduction, and we're going to open the floor for questions and answer. So I don't know who's going to moderate the question and answer. Do we have questions?
Thank you. My question is based on security-wise, and as we are aware of, our continent. Let me use Ghana for example. We all know how people use the internet. Awareness creation about security is a problem for us, and even with the some restrictions with top level domain names that even has some security embedded to prevent customization of certain um, top level domains to be created. Um, I kind of foresee that ICANN should as well also be concerned about user security, as in how to even identify this kind of security if administrators are embedded or have allowed this universal acceptance into their domain servers and whatever. The normal user is my concern now. Like with the Google, gmail.com, for example, we know that gmail.com, it has some requirements when you are creating those accounts, So it's a bit of, we will say, secured in a way. But if we are accepting any form, of top-level domain, security-wise, are we also talking about awareness creation to the normal user that will also help in preventing this kind of cyber threats and stuff? I believe if you get my question, if you don't.
Yes, I get it. Thank you. Yes, security is a challenge, but at the same time, you will not say because security is a challenge, they are not going to move forward. You have to move forward and solve those security challenges. It is not as if everything is going to blow completely. There's still going to be rules, and that is why we need to understand what are going to be the rules. And that is why the awareness is being there. I understand in terms of end users. End users would likely to have much challenge because these days there's a lot of scam happening. And it's very, very difficult to differentiate between what is real and what is not real. And for the ordinary man or ordinary woman on the streets, I'll take the banking app for an example. The bad guy has created a wrong or has created an alternative app, and the innocent woman selling something in the market has downloaded the wrong one, and she found out that the money is gone. That is a big problem. And at the same time, it might be difficult for anybody. For example, I got an email yesterday saying somebody did something, and immediately I saw the email address that was used, I knew it was faked. Because I knew that the person that would create this was like something at Avent. I was like, no, this cannot be correct. And it's based on just experience. I didn't even ask the person because I know that somebody has just created that email address in order for them to use his name to carry out a fraud. And it is because there are so many avenues you can create an email address now. Somebody can create an email address and use your name, and they will carry transaction out in your name, and you never even know. It's the guys that are public figures. Go and ask the president how many Twitter accounts people has opened on his behalf to swindle others, to make them believe that they are talking to the president. And yes, I agree it's a problem, but it's a problem that has to be solved. And that is why everybody has to come together in order to solve this problem. So I think what we can do, since we have time, is maybe we'll move to the second part. Maybe we'll start, or should we go for lunch? Okay, let's go for lunch.
two questions. The first one is on ownership of the internet. From your presentation, I get the feeling about how strongly you feel about who owns the internet, and the belief that it shouldn't just be a few people that own it. My question is, how do you think that issue can be resolved, taking into account of the history of how the internet started? Because whoever is responsible for creating it would obviously want to maintain control and ownership for as much as they can. Then also there's the aspect of business. So all those who are strongly in favor of owning the internet are doing so because it benefits them economically. They are making money out of it, and so they are not going to easily allow that to go. So there's the problem of money, there's the problem of business, there's the problem of control. How do you think that can be resolved such that we can have that global ownership of the internet? The second one is on the scope of universal acceptance. How far do you expect it to go? Right now we are talking of email and domain names. Beyond that, what other software applications do you think should be involved?
I think I'll start with your second question, which is every software has to be involved, because every software, maybe when you want to start the software, you are going to register or something to use the software, then it has to also be involved. For example, I think virtually, even if if you buy a new phone, you need to put an email address or you need to do something. Even if you're downloading a game, they will say put in your email address or something. Whatever it is now, everything is so much dependent. The email address is now becoming an identity. And again, now with the world of iPhones, everything is attached to your iTunes account. And what is your iTunes account? Your email address. And also the same thing with Android. Okay, so everything works with it. Now they are talking about single sign-on. I just sign in with one. It has not really. There is a lot of security challenge with that, because with single sign-on, that means if I hack into one, I've hacked into all. So that's why a lot of them are still. That's why with Google has done a lot of. You can do one sign up now. Once you enter your Google account, you can have access to email, you can have access to your shared folder, you can have access. But even at that, Google is still will come to that, is doing what we call the level 2. That means they will not allow you to use Unicode to open an email address, but you can receive from somebody that has email address, and it's because of the security challenge. So everybody has to do something. It is not just about the domain names, it's not just about email addresses, because these two things is tied to everything now. Now we're talking about identity. A lot of people are pushing towards that. Your identity should not be your domain name. That once I just see you, I say I want to meet you, just give me your domain name. And once I go onto your domain name, I can see everything about you. I can link up with you. There is now just that access. That now the idea is, what they are working on now is, now if you want to sign into if you buy a new phone, you just signing into your Android app, your Android account, and it will download your entire contacts. It will do everything, your old app that you have on your old phone, it will move it to the new phone. Now, why can't we be using domain names to do that? That you just have your domain name, okay, and anytime you enter your domain name, it's your identity. Everywhere, everybody will have one domain name. So people are thinking towards that. Now that should be like the global identity. that everybody has a domain name. And once you have your domain name, it is unique rather than you now doing sign on. So everybody has to do that. Then the first question is one question I always want to run away from. Conflict of interest usually don't allow me to say a lot that I want to say, but I am very passionate about having in ensuring that the internet is actually one internet. It is something that I truly, personally want to work towards. In terms of what I have done, I am one of the very lucky ones, I would say, in Africa, that when it comes to the internet community, I have done it all. When it comes to ICANN, ISOC, IGF, ITU, everything, I have gone through the entire thing. I have seen it all. I can say that, very few. And a lot of times when I talk about this, they talk about conspiracy theory. It's not about conspiracy theory. It's about the fact that the internet is not truly one world, one internet. Okay? And we have to just go and look at it. It is important. What can be done is people have to talk about it. It's multi-stakeholder model. Everybody comes to the table. And that is why it is important. Okay? Unfortunately, it is out of scope of this presentation. I am not going to say a lot about it, but what I want is such that anybody across the globe, the same rule that can be done in America should be able to apply in Ghana here. It is not that one company would say, we are these companies, they are not the internet, but they are the foundation of the internet. Google is so powerful today that I don't see any other person that is as powerful as Google in this world. The amount of power that Google is holding. Google is not the internet, but Google is sitting on the internet, on the first layer, because whatever you want to do, you go through Google. But as powerful as Google is Google accountable to everybody in the world the way they are accountable to the Americans? Thank you.
All right, so we'll take one last question and then we'll go for lunch.
Thank you for the insightful presentation. You mentioned in a form of recommendation that the domain registry should be managed or owned by entities that are not government. Entities that are not government, like organizations. So, for example, in Ghana, we have the Ghana Internet Exchange Association, that GISA. Okay. So, such an organization should rather own or have control of the registry for obvious reasons. Okay. So, just a point of clarification, our history in Ghana, there was a company that was both the registry and also the registrar for a long time, until there was a law, the Electronic Transaction Act in 2000. It took a while before GDNR was established. What should be, so currently GDNR is the regulator that gives licenses to the registrars so that entities can go to them for top level domains. What should be the justification to take that responsibility, which is more of a regulatory and a policy role, such as GDNR, to be given to private or non-governmental associations or organizations? Are there examples elsewhere that we can learn from? Thank you.
I think I'm having difficult questions today. This is politics, and sometimes I have to move away from that murky water of politics, because, like I said, conflict of interest. I have my personal opinion. I know what is happening. I have my personal opinion, and my own opinion might be wrong, and it's possible to be right. But the idea why government should stay out of it, it is now who manages it. For us in Africa, the general thing is the stronghold is government. And at the same time, governments can be reckless. So it is extremely difficult sometimes when you say government should stay out of it, and government should stay out of it. If government is staying out of it, the private guys that will manage it can also be very extremely reckless. And now become a lord on their own that will not be able to do anything. I can give examples. It's not only Ghana. In Kenya, there was, I'm not talking about it. So, it is a 50-50 thing. The fear is the recklessness of government, of some governments. And at the same time, the fear is also the recklessness of, because the domain name itself, like I said, is power. It is money. We're talking of billions of dollars. It is money that, if it is not managed properly, Google is richer than most governments now. What are we talking about? So, where is the money coming from? Or Facebook buy a lot of country, completely self. So, should there be the case? So, is the power with the people? For me, what I see is most important is that the ordinary man on the street should not be cheated. It should be something that would go round, not that there is one man sitting down somewhere and is making a whole lot, and because that's the way the internet has been structured. So like I said, it's about politics, it's about getting it right, and I cannot say categorically, except that I want to give my personal opinion, that this is the right approach. But generally speaking, it is better for government to stay kind of out of it, or let it be 50-50 management. So that if one guy is reckless, the other guy will be checkmating the other. And that has also worked across the globe. But government can be reckless, individuals too can also be reckless.
All right, thank you, Doc, for the insightful presentation. So, at this point, we'll be taking our lunch. At the same venue, we had our snack break. It's going to last for 1 hour. It's 1:17, so let's do less than an hour so that we'll be able to close early. So let's come back at 2 p.m. so that we'll be able to run through the second session and leave it here early. Hope that works for us. Thank you. So let's make our way to the dining place and come back at exactly 2. Thank you.